And welcome to the East County Prep Football Report. It's week 11, Dave. Sad times in a way, but a lot of excitement. The only drama is on the field in the East County in week 11 as we get ready. There's a look at Mr. Week 11, the late Bill Dickens, who would have loved the game that we have in store this Friday night. We got some good games, but we got one big game that everyone's talking about. It's almost one of those big county games too. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the playoffs, and we're going to talk about championships and our schedule of games this week. Dave, why don't we get right into it, because you saw the big game out there in Santee last week with West Hills and Santana. And that set up the big showdown like we've never seen in many, many years. I don't know if we've ever seen something like this, really, to be quite honest with you. We're kind of going through the record books a little bit. Dave, I'll just say this. I'll set you up. You can talk about last week's game with the Sultans as well. But back in the spring, not more than a year ago, the El Capitan Vaqueros won the Tony Berner Memorial Trophy, defeating the West Hills Wolfpack 27-14. West Hills has not lost a game since. They're 9-0. Both teams are 5-0 in league.
I'll tell you, and the one thing I remember about that game, I don't know if this one can top last year's game, to be quite honest, because that was a heck of a game. Just the emotions on the game, on the gridiron, on the sidelines, in the stands. I mean, I just remember it was so crazy, and it was all hype and just a hunt. I mean, it's pure adrenaline on the field. And then when it was all said and done, and they presented that cup to Coach Berner, we were there actually to cover that. And matter of fact, thank you for that cameo there, Coach Berner. It was actually a real it was a special moment, I would say, for Coach Berner, and a serious moment. Yet it just was a great moment in history, the way everything fell into place. And of course, West Hills put forth their best effort too, and they played their hearts out that night. But just the way it all went down, and then just the look and him holding the cup, and Barb coming up next to him, and all the support he gets from his wife year in and year out. Coach just looked, he had the serious look, but he looked like he was in bliss at the same time. And of course, I didn't catch it on that film, but I plan on doing it this week, maybe, as the How About Them Vaqueros, but we'll see how that plays out. But really, just an immense, great. The moment was just priceless, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But those two teams really went at it, and I remember some pretty long passes on behalf of the Wolfpack that evening towards the end of the game, trying to win the game.
Yeah, well, in that game, and the thing about the spring game and this game is there's a lot of players that played in that game that are back for this game. Braden Oberg threw to Conaway. He threw to Dillon. They completed 10 passes together as a team. So he was rolling with those guys a little bit. Savion Yokley, he scored 2 touchdowns. Antoine Yokley had an interception. Just a lot of experience coming into this game. So I think these teams know each other pretty well. Obviously, West Hills, coming in off of the victory against Santana, that city championship. I don't think there's any letdown here, but they had a tough game last week, while El Capitan did not face the type of competition maybe necessarily coming in. But let the record state right now that both teams are headed to the playoffs and likely to host a game, no matter what the outcome is of this league championship game, Dave.
Well, you heard yourself. There was a quote from Ian Richardson of the Monarchs And I want to say that Coach Berner spoke pretty highly of the Monarchs and the effort that they did put forth, and scoring early, and really you saw the confidence that the quarterback for the Monarchs, Richardson, had in that game versus El Cap. But I mean, they were overmatched, but at least that they put in 150% in that game. They fought hard, but let's just put it this way: I think this is one of the best, not the Brad Cagle team from 2014, but they're a very, very good El Capitan team this season. One of the better ones I've seen since 2014. I'll just say that. And funny thing is, I'll get into that real quick. Coach Berner says the same thing about Casey Ashton as West Hills Wolfpack, and we'll get into that in just a second. But ask Coach Berner and his thoughts on today's or tomorrow's matchup. I should say, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Friday, I'm just so eager to see the action. He said for them going in at 9-1, you got the Valley League title, you got the Tony Berner Cup, you got better seeding in the playoffs, and just like trying to break up. Yeah, that's a good way he put it. Coach Berner said it's just like trying to break up a no-no in baseball for those folks out there that don't follow baseball much. A no-hitter. It's very tough to do, and unfortunately, it's happened to the Padres right on the edge a couple of times. I remember Chris Young. Anyhow, trying to break up the no-no, trying to get their chance at a first time of being able to be the spoiler at a first chance for West Hills to go 10-0 in the regular season ever. And then there's also over their rival. They have become a rival as we've found out over the years. Thus, the Tony Berner Cup. They become a rival. I don't know if it was because they put the 52 in there and they can slide right down there into Lakeside. And he had this to say, too, about the West Hills Wolfpack. They're very good and come off as one of the best West Hills team that I've seen in a long time. Very good in all aspects. Our defense has to play lights out, do their jobs, make the tackles. On offense, we need to be mistake-free and play our game because we need to not get caught up in the hype and not do too much. And most importantly, try not to do too much, and they are going to do everything, and you and I both know this, they can to get to Sabi. And that is going to be, I'm sure, the key for the El Capitan defense. Now, as Casey Ash speaks on that same game from West Hills, El Cap, about the fastest team we've played. Obviously, the Oakley brothers get all of the attention, but they have other very talented kids. Hopefully we learn some things from the last week's performance against Santana. We're looking forward to a competitive game. And I think what he's leading into, last week against Santana, you saw the score, but the score really doesn't tell the whole story. Because I'll tell you right now, that first half, 7-0. That's all they had up there. Okay. And after the game, Coach Ash, he's very upfront on how his team plays, and if they play great, he'll give them the props that they deserve. But if they're lacking, he'll also let you know how they were lacking. Offensive line was having a little trouble. They were feeling a lot of pressure from those Sultans, and that Sultan defense, as you and I both know, have been carrying that team most of the season. And big reason being is they've been losing quarterbacks. So, I mean, with that being said, all the pressure they had in front, and if anybody didn't have a chance to see the post game from Braden, quarterback of the West Hills Wolfpack, he said he was feeling it all night. So the most pressure he'd felt all season coming from that Santana front. So he was feeling it, and I think they need to straighten up the special teams a little bit as well. I believe it was, I want to say it was a 37-yarder that was, boy, I don't know what that ball, I mean, it got hit, and then it looked like it went 5 yards after that, after it was tapped. I don't know if you got to see that replay of that kick, Ramon.
You're talking about the field goal by Tyler Haley?
Yeah, the one that just went boop, and then it just, all the air went out of it after a little tap, and then I think that was huge. And then it wasn't him that was doing the kickoff, but then there was also, I think I saw 1 or 2 illegal procedures as a result. So that being said, I think that special teams is definitely going to be tightening up. They did it last time. First, it's kind of funny because they're preparing for the last game of the season, the biggest game of the season, and they backed up a little bit. And if you look at what they did against Imperial, those are 2 of the things that they had trouble with in that game too, first game of the season. So I'm sure Coach Ash will tighten all those things up, and I'm sure they'll be ready to go. And look, what I'm looking for a lot of the big boy coming from the as they like to say, the wing T, and that would be Diego coming out of there, and just, boy, hasn't he just been a beast? I mean, he's just running people over like nobody's business. A true fullback, I would say. I wouldn't even call him a running back.
Well, Dave, having seen so many of these Valley League matchups so far, does El Capitan have answers for that? Now, West Hills, I don't want to say I'm not getting on Braden. He's had an incredible season, but he finally turned it over. But we know the Sultans have been pretty good in the secondary this year, and it was a big game. So El Capitan, can they get that key turnover? Burner said he lost a key player to an injury last week, but he may be gaining one of his top players back this week.
Yeah, that was earlier. That was we were hopeful we were going to get Alex back, but the understanding on that is he won't be joining the squad until the playoffs. Not that that's entirely a bad thing, because if we're going to make a run and we're going to make a long run, we want to have Alex as healthy as possible. So, hey, if they have to do without him, they've played with some injuries too, just like every other team. But
I must have read your information incorrectly then. In the story, I actually ran a comment that said that Burner had professed to losing a key linebacker, a team captain, in that game. But I thought it was in the game last week. You're saying that is, and I thought that Alex, I think Alex could be back for this game from what I've heard. I'm not sure though, but nonetheless, I maybe I misunderstood that. So does El Capitan have a solution right now for this West Hills offense?
You know what? I think they do. I think that if there was a defense, and I've seen a lot of defenses play against West Hills, and I think really, if they watch a lot of that film of how Santana played defense, especially in that first half, I think if they get a lot of pressure off that edge, what the thing is look, Braden's been comfortable in the pocket most of the year, and he's only had a step here, step there, or he's had enough time to run it out to the left or run it out to the right with some key blocks. His offensive line has been playing perfectly, but I think if they continue to, maybe even some no huddle, bring, speed the game up a little bit, and I think that might throw them off kilter a little bit. So that would be my thought. But that's going to be up to Coach McDade. But I'm sure that he's got a couple of surprises in his back pocket, and their defense has done well with some great teams. But I think this is the best team that they've played all year, and vice versa for West Hills. I think it's going to be testing all 3 phases for both teams.
Yeah, so that would be my last question for you. I guess I'm really aiming this right towards what defense can make the key stop. obviously everyone knows for West Hills that they will need to stop Savion Yokley primarily. I mean, there are a lot of great complementary pieces. Let me give you this scenario. Can West Hills win the can El Cap win the game if the Yokley or Yokley brother combination doesn't strike for a long distance touchdown in the game? Or does El Capitan need that big play to win this game? Can this game be won by El Cap in I don't want to say normal fashion? What they do is spectacular.
In
And
the
if
trenches.
they
Yes,
do what
I
they do, if Yokley does what he does, El Capitan can and will, I think, get over the hump against West Hills. But if they don't have those type of spectacular plays, because they're all about, I mean, yes, El Capitan can move the ball, but it really seems like their biggest moments come with big plays from the spectacular speed of the Yokley brothers for the most part. Yes, we've seen, the other players do well. We know Peace. He's getting healthy. He's doing better. So tell me, Dave.
I think with Peace being healthy, and let's not forget. I know he hasn't taken a lot of snaps or anything like that, but let's not forget about LaRussa Jr. and throw him into the mix. To give Peace some rest. And I think, who knows? Maybe that will be the plan. Maybe, hey, let's slow it down a little bit. Let's slow the game.
No, don't forget Deshaun Desidor. I mean, he seems to only be getting better as the weeks go along, and he also is not. I would call him I'd call him a big play player, a big play guy. And Peace was getting to be known as a big play player. I mean, El Capitan is all about the spectacular plays. I don't think we see that type of offense from West Hills. Not that it's any less effective at all. In fact, there's more consistency, right, to what West Hills does. That's why we've seen El Cap in a few of their games, even against the teams they're expected to beat, fall behind or struggle to get in front because they're waiting to get that big play strike going is what they need, while West Hills might be more adept at controlling the pace of the game and the clock.
Well, and I think that's where the key point I was mentioning before, missed in the wing T, having Diego back there and back there often. I think you can even put Snyder back there as well, and they're some quick play action. They have no problem with the running game. I'll tell you that right now. They can run the ball, and they can run the ball well. As a matter of fact, that would be, I think, more scary than, no offense to Braden, but I think that the running game is just as dangerous or more so than the passing attack. And if you've looked at the last couple of games, I think he's healing up more and more each game, and I think he'll start getting more receptions. Who we haven't been hearing a lot of as often is Max Conaway. He hasn't been catching as many of those balls that typically he did at the beginning of the season. Of course, we know with rib injuries, those aren't exact. You don't want guys smacking you in the ribs every game a couple of times. But I think that he's reached the peak possibly where he's healed up enough. Who knows? Maybe that's what they were doing, is limiting his amount of reception and his targets so they can play him in this game. And he could be more of the featured, I wouldn't even say receiver, featured tight end.
No, I can't believe we've come to this point. I mean, we pointed to this game, on our I'm pretty sure on the very first shows, even the preview shows, as possibly likely to be what it was. And Santana, with their great spring season, I mean, they were a worthy challenger, right? They gave West Hills a pretty good game, as you said last week. Of course, they were a little bit overmatched with El Capitan, and that brings us to the Division 3. We talked about it, where the playoff teams currently lie. West Hills is currently 5th in Division 3. I don't think they can get to 4th. El Capitan is 8th. If El Capitan loses, they could end up having to go on the road, which could be at a place like Imperial or Orange Glen or, I don't know, Canyon Hills. There's some other teams battling. There's also a big game between Bonita Vista and Hilltop that could end up being like a play-in game unless Westview could somehow upset Mount Carmel. I don't know how it all works with their formulas, but I just know that there's a big chance that these three teams, El Capitan, West Hills, and Santana, could be hosting games right here in the East County on that first night of the playoffs.
I wouldn't doubt it, and I think that is why I think why Coach Berner was more concerned and threw in about the seating, as where Coach Ashton throwing the seating as much, because he knows where he's at. They're reading it all daily, and I'm sure that Coach Berner is looking at that very carefully, and I think that fuels the fire even more. I mean, He wants the cup, he wants the title, but I think more than that, I think he wants the seating because he wants to play his place.
Okay. Well, I think everything's looking good for that too. But yeah, El Capitan, they're kind of the one that's slipping just a little bit. Sultan's had a little bit tougher schedule, apparently. That's why they've been able to kind of be ahead of them. We kind of, joked about it. Some people have said maybe they would even end up switching Santana and El Capitan should they end up close because of that 35-0 whitewash. So not sure about that, Dave, but just so spectacular. I'm sure everything that I mentioned will happen. I mean, you cannot stop Savion Yokley all game, right? He is going to be able to, right, do some a spectacular play or two to get a touchdown. West Hills is going to do what they do. I'm getting ready to put you on the spot, Dave. You remember the show? We both picked West Hills to win. I think we both said West Hills was going to win the championship just almost based on the fact that they're hosting this game because the teams are so even. The computers say that as well, Dave.
Look, maybe we should have called up Shannon Sharp and DK from Seattle maybe to help us on this one. But anyhow, that was supposed to be funny. But anyway, I don't know if you heard about those tweets, but they were kind of funny because I think they're tongue in cheek, and I don't think they really dislike each other. But at any rate, I did think, and you put me on the spot. I think week 3, I want to say, or maybe even week 4, what I thought of as far as
we wanted to pick the championship way back when the season started, which was 7 weeks ago now.
And you know what? In spite of number 8. I tell you what, here's what I got to say. And I'm not saying he is Lamar Jackson, but he is very similar, and I'm talking about Savi Oakley. And with that being said, how hard has it been for people to tackle the running quarterback like the style of the way Lamar runs? You watch some of the film, you watch some of the NFL films, you watch some of Savi's film, and it's pretty similar. And I'll tell you what, when he's throwing, he's a great passer, and he's very accurate. But here's the thing, he's also a great passer on the run, and even more so, he's just plain dangerous when he's on the run. And if he has to catch a ball and run, nothing to take away from Antoine, but I'll tell you what, you got Newland throwing passes to Savi Oakley. See, that opens up there's a whole nother box of tricks right there.
Could you see Newland getting into this game?
Absolutely.
In a key moment. Okay.
Absolutely. Why not? That's just another tool in his toolbox. Why wouldn't you use everything you've got?
Fair enough. I don't know what to do. I'm torn. We can't sit here all night. I don't want to pick this game because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, right? But we got to, Dave. We got to. No, we could just say, look, we picked West Hills to win the title, so we really don't have to pick this game. We're kind of on the record, right, saying West Hills is gonna win this game. But man, it just something, there are obviously so many great players, and that's why these teams are in the position that they were in. Savion Yokley is on the short list for the County Player of the Year. That's a given, despite the fact of El Capitan, they're not worse than any of those great open division and Division I teams. That's how spectacular Yokley has been. He will be one of the candidates for the Player of the Year with all those top names, okay, with Christian Washington, okay, with Lucky Sutton, okay. That's just the way it is. Savion Yokley is above and beyond, maybe the top player just because of what he's done. Has Oberg been the best, most solid, consistent passing quarterback? Maybe, yeah, no doubt about it. He's been superb. He doesn't make any mistakes. Yokley, does he make some? Yes, they play a little bit looser, right? A little bit more wild open. They've made a few bugaboos here and there and got into a little bit of trouble that they've had to overcome with all that talent and skill that they have. So any way you can get off the Wolfpack here and get over to the Vaqueros, Dave, I'm probably willing to pick the other team just to be sporting about it. We're both going to be there. Maybe you're going to be on one sideline. I'll cover the other. Maybe we'll switch at halftime. I don't know.
If this gives any indication, this color, I'm going to take for the first week, I think it is, I'm going to take Savi, Antoine, and company, and I'm going to take the Vaqueros by a field goal.
I was all set to take the Vaqueros if you took the Wolfpack, but I'll stick with our preseason choice. I think the West Hills Wolfpack at home, it's going to be tough to slow down Savion Yokley. All-time, Dave, West Hills leads the series 17-14. In the 21st century, it's 10-9 West Hills, but El Capitan has won their 9, have been out of the last 14 meetings. The last 18 games, the series tied 9-9. That's how close. That's how close it is. Right. Well, and here's one more thing about the trophy, and you can say cup. It's the Santee, that's a cup. This is a trophy. It's shaped like a football. So you call it what you will. But in the spring, when we saw Coach Berner pridefully hold that trophy up with the light stanchion in the background shining above the ball, it just looked like a sign from heaven. And victory meant everything that night, especially with no league championship on the line. And he really wanted to get that trophy back. Never is this an afterthought. In fact, the most important thing regarding this football game is probably the scholarship awarded in Tony Berner's name, right? They're going to play a great football game. It's the most important game for both these schools in many, many years. But you know what? What they've done over there, that's special. And that's very, very admirable and goes above this game. But I'm not saying that the trophy is on the back burner, right? But this week, the fans are going to be thinking about winning this game, winning this championship. And yes, the trophy comes along with that title.
Big game, big implications. I don't think show me where there's a bigger game in San Diego County, and there might be, but it's going to be pretty darn close with how many.
Right. Well, look at the win-loss records. That's all you need. El Cap's got a winning streak too. Don't forget. But El Capitan going up against West Hills and that school record 11-game winning streak. And
there'll be some red jackets there, I'm sure.
Oh, there'll be plenty of media there. It's going to be you and I. I've watched games all year from my satellite studios here, Dave. Lined up my TVs and computers, and I've got to go. I've got to go to this one. There's no doubt, and get there early. I mean, you might be. I don't know. You're gonna be parking down past the softball, past West Hills Parkway. I don't know what's gonna happen. Take an Uber. Get there early.
Been there, done that when the purple and gold came over there. So
congratulations to both teams this season on getting to this point. I mean, wow.
I tell you what, it's two of the better teams in quite a few years in the Valley with the records that they have this year. You know,
We're picking the game, but nobody in their right mind, unless you're wearing Wolfpack silver and blue, unless you're wearing the gold and black of El Cap, and have some allegiance to one of the teams, I don't think you can pick the game. I think maybe a general fan might lean towards El Cap because of the spectacular play of Yoakley, but again, West Hills, they're undefeated and maybe, getting that nod at home. So, wow.
And if you don't, and lastly, and
that's the equalizer.
He will not come out and say it. I could ask him probably 10, 15, 20, 30 times. And because of the humble man that Coach Ash is, no matter I bring up the 95 game and how bad he wants to win that for that reason, he will he might mumble it under his breath, but he's not going to come out and say that that's first and foremost. That is last on his agenda. Would he love it? Yes, I'm sure he would. But I think that there's a lot more on the line, even in the perfect season.
All right, and tears will be shed, but that's okay. You're still going to the playoffs, and a half an hour on one football game is probably not long enough. But let's wrap up the Valley League real quick, Dave. Then we'll get into the Hills League. Santana, they played that game against West Hills last week. They played pretty well. They're going to go take on El Cajon Valley. The Sultans have won 10 straight in this series. The Sultans are in the playoffs. We talked about their position in Division III. The Braves, looks like they are headed into the playoffs, most likely, Dave. There's a chance of maybe some math that they could fall out. They're underdogs, obviously, here. They pointed to this game as being one that they'd like to be able to compete and win in. Their health will be a key factor if they're going to be able to stay competitive against Santana, that also is a little bit beat up still. But the Braves, wherever they're headed in the playoffs, it's going to be a long trip, either up to the North County or maybe out into the Imperial Valley.
Yeah, I think in this one, though, like you said, the injury bug, and I'll tell you, all things considered, I mean, Santana is injured as many injuries as they've had, and they even had an injury on Friday night, went off on a stretcher and had to leave the game in an ambulance. I understand he's just fine. Don't have a name for you right at this point, but a lot of key injuries. But it seems like, especially at the important positions, when one person goes down for those Sultans, they've been pretty resilient as far as putting somebody in place and the next man up, causing some damage. And again, I can't say enough about the Sultan defense, but with is injured, even though they have the depth, I'm not taking anything away from Santana, but if there were to be a spoiler game and there were going to be a spoiler team, Braves could be the one to do it. They are playing at home. We've seen spectacular play this year come from the Braves. We've seen them. If they could duplicate what they start off like they have, a perfect example against West Hills, their first drive, they were almost into the end zone, or the red zone. I'm sorry, and their drive stalled, but they were moving the ball. So maybe they figured out something throughout the season, and if not win the game, maybe in this one they can at least make it pretty close. But if there were to be an upset, it's a possibility.
No, the Braves, right now, like I said, that looks like they're going to squeak in, even if they fall in this game. The last time they beat the Sultans was in 2009 in the 21st century. Sultans lead the series 14-5. All time, it's Santana 37, Braves 16. That kind of sounds like the final score of this game, what it might be. I've got Santana.
Yeah, I mean, they're injured or not. What Santana showed me even through those first couple of quarters against and being battered like that and injured, the way they played, especially on their defensive front against West Hills, that could mean a little trouble for Daniel Jacobs and company. And hoping that we have we got enough rest, and I think that the key player in this particular game is if Cal Gordon gets a start. That's where it could be at least a little interesting. There could be a little more scoring as far as the Braves are concerned. But who knows? Any given Friday, I want to pick the Braves for the upset, but I've been on that limb long enough, so I'm going to say Santana by 17.
Yeah, I like Santana. Now, Santana, I mentioned, Dylan Anderson had a nice game against the Wolfpack. He had 163 yards. He had 4 receptions, and he also threw a touchdown pass, but he was not the quarterback. The Sultans actually brought maybe their quarterback of the future into the game, Dave, last week.
Yeah, I believe I arrived probably mid-third quarter. Alex Rio in there, and I hadn't seen him in previous games. We've seen Nick Ledger, who was a starting quarterback. Ethan Wright was filling in there for a while, but this was a new one, and I don't know if this was because of a new look, because as I said, I got there a little late, but.
Sure, but if you're bringing him in the game against West Hills, I mean, the Sultans knew that they were up against it, and that their injuries at quarterback had put them in a little bit of a tough situation against West Hills. But if they were willing to play, I believe he's a sophomore, right? So
Correct.
They were willing to go with them there. I'd look for him to get more experience here, and I would think moving forward he might draw the starts in the playoffs. You said it looks like Ledger will be unable to return from his injury. So
Ledger,
the Sultans maybe, we know that the other guys can do. We know that the others have take turns throwing passes, but if this guy's played quarterback, say on the junior varsity, and as their season ends and he's doing well and the team does well, may be ready to at least help the team in the postseason as the starting quarterback. So we'll see about that. Okay.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. But again, that offensive front really is going to have their hands full with that Santana defense, and they're not small in size by any means either, coming up front and from the edges. So Braves got their hands full. Is it possible? Anything's possible, but like I said, I'm gonna take Santana on the road by 17.
And just wait and see what happens with the Braves in the playoffs. Watch out. If they're healthy, they could spring an upset. One more game in the Grossmont Valley League. And look, folks, this is like a playoff game. I got to be honest with you. So for everyone going out to that game involved in those schools, this one's not going to be a marquee matchup. But for Monte Vista, this is the playoffs, Dave. This is the last game of the season. Monte Vista has not suffered a winless season since 1964. Okay, 2 of the first 4 Monte Vista seasons they had no wins at all, and Monte Vista High School won only 3 of their first 44 games. Now we know Monte Vista's come a long way when it comes to football, and they've won championships and had great seasons, but they got to get rid of that goose egg. But they're going to have to do it against a Valhalla team that is in position. Look, Dave, I've been saying the Norsemen looks like they're in. They might want to win this one to make sure that they're in. Here's the thing. I'm sure Valhalla looks at it and says, hey, we're on the road, but we can win this game against Monte Vista. But I think Monte Vista says, you know what? We got to win a game. This is the team we can do it against.
I absolutely think that, and I think that I was looking at this from last week, and after talking to Ian Richardson Jaden Richardson, and after talking to Aiden Roby, both of them, I believe, they're of a positive mindset, and they do have little bit of shortage on the amount of guys that hit the field, and they go both ways, and they've been going both ways all season. Okay, they don't have quite the amount of players that even Valhalla is coming in with, but I'll tell you this much: I think that Monte Vista has the best shot because they have the heart to do it, and I think with that record that you also that they since the '60s they haven't gone 0-4. I think that this is one of those games that they finally get over the hump. I think that they've talking to all these coaches after they played Monte Vista. You know, eight out of 9 coaches said, "Hey, this was no walk in the park." You know, you see the score, but you talk to the Burners, you talk to the Coach Ashes, you talk to Estes, you talk to any of them, and it was no walk in the park. Yeah, this one here, I think that if there was ever a chance for them to get a win, it would definitely be number 1 because it's at home, number 2 because they are overdue and they have had some games where a couple of miscues and they could have ended up on the other end, and I think that is going to be the key. Don't turn over the ball, create turnovers, and that is possible. So the defense plays lights out, and they put the pressure on that offensive line of Valhalla, which is very possible to do. Maybe force them to throw some interceptions to some of that the Monte Vista secondary, which is not that bad of a secondary. So
no, it plays into Monte Vista's hands. Actually, the secondary is a very strong point of Monte Vista's team, and Valhalla has had a penchant of making turnover. They did it again last game, so I think that bodes well for Monte Vista as well. Ironically, Dave, when they played in the spring, the Monte Vista won, but Valhalla had won the previous 8 meetings, which kind of surprises me. That, I mean, Valhalla's had some great tradition and history and winning teams. We just know that over the last couple of years, they've gone down a little bit, but they'd still found a way to beat Monte Vista. Now, there's a little window in there after just talking about the last few years where they did not play when Valhalla was over in the Hills League. So there's a little bit of caveat there, but they have played 13 times this century, with Valhalla winning 8 of those games, and the all-time series is Monte Vista 24-13-2. Dave, I'm never going to pick anyone to go winless. I've got the Monarchs winning this game by a point.
Yeah, just because of what I just mentioned in the secondary and being able to force some mistakes, I think that's going to be the key to the Monarchs winning, and just having positive mindsets. And after talking to those two on the offense and who also play on the defense, I think I'm going to take Monte Vista, and I'm going to take them by 10.
Okay, big win. All right, and that's hopefully. And Monte Vista, mathematically, I don't think anybody can create a formula that's going to find them in. They're not in last in their division, but I think they're next to last. And like I said, Valhalla, here's the scenario as best I can see it for Valhalla, is that Mar Vista poses the toughest threat. They're in the 13th position, and the Mariners are in a game with San Ysidro this Friday. If Valhalla were to lose, I think it's very, very close, and Mar Vista could get in there at the expense of Valhalla. But that San Ysidro is a pretty tough team too, and that's kind of a closely rated game. So Valhalla, just know this: win and you will be in. And that kind of, maybe that's the motivation they will need, because they wouldn't want to rest on their 2-7, 3-7 record to get into the playoffs. Go in there with a winning formula as you go into the postseason. Okay, Dave, let's get into the Grossmont Hills League now, where the Helix Highlanders can wrap up the Grossmont Hills League Championship. This is one where I believe you owe me a pizza for. Your Eagles will not win the championship against my Highlanders. Last year, though, Dave, Granite Hills did break that 10-game losing streak in the spring with the victory. They are at home here against Helix, and they're both going to the playoffs. They're both in Division I. Helix is actually fighting. People think they might be the number 1 seed in Division I. If Torrey Pines loses to La Costa Canyon, which isn't out of the question, even though Torrey Pines is probably a 2-touchdown favorite or more. La Costa Canyon's had a very good season and are in the top 15 or so in the power rankings. And maybe Helix could actually sneak in to the top 4. Meanwhile, the Eagles are in the playoffs as well, but they're going to be probably going on the road to take on a team like Oceanside or El Camino. The Eagles just need to, we know the formula is a little bit more simple than what's happened to the Eagles, Dave. They can't turn the ball over.
Hey, you know, it's funny. It's funny that you say that because that's one of the keys. Talking to Cobbs earlier, Coach Cobbs, and I think this is verbatim exactly what they need to do. Okay, overall, we did a pretty good job last week against Major Givens. When they were on the road against STEELE, and if they can replicate what seemed to a similar game plan, then we have a chance to slow down Washington, and which he acknowledges he's one of the best players in the county, so easier said than done. And like you said, to open it up, we cannot turn the ball over. We turn the ball over, we lose. Plain and simple. This game here against Helix, I think that is the Achilles heel. They do anything like they did against Grossmont, any of that, as far as whether it be fumbling the ball or throwing those picks, you cannot give free passes to the Highlanders, and that's just, they're going to capitalize on it, and that's something. It's hard enough to stop Washington, so I think they need to just shift their focus towards doing their best to stop Washington and try and create their own turnovers, and I don't know, maybe they can create enough havoc off the edges, and Burton or Tanner can get in there and maybe disrupt Jesse and maybe a strip sack, or I mean, they got to hope for something like that, really. And I think Granite secondary is still in pretty good shape too, as far as their safeties and their defensive backs too. They got plenty of speed, and they have pretty good hands out there. And anywhere, if you're going to throw it near Joaquin Thomas Jr., it's ill-advised, because he's probably going to take it in for 6. I mean, case in point, he did it last week.
Yeah, Helix has their own ball hawk back there with Xavier Van, so the Eagles will have to worry about him. So it's not like the Eagles are necessarily coming in a wounded bird, right? I mean, they're still a fine team. They've lost to some good teams. Maybe they've lost the games they were underdogs and won the games they've won. They're going to be underdogs here, obviously. But I would think that, given the fact that, they're the spoiler, right, Dave, at this point,
Well, last year, I want to say they were favored last year, or for the spring.
Oh, yeah, no. I picked the Eagles, too. We all picked the Eagles that night to win that game. And even I couldn't pick the Highlanders.
Even I think the UT even had them higher in that spring season, or maybe.
Oh yeah, there was a special year. That's what sucked about the pandemic for the Granite Hills Eagles. I mean, that would have been that team. I think that their preparation for the spring, I think they were a little bit better than every other team because they were ready. You've illustrated that point perfectly, but they still would have been that same team during the regular season. They would have done something special during a championship season.
That's exactly it. And I think really the only position and that's unfortunate, but the position that they've struggled at is at the quarterback position. And heck, if somebody doesn't, even as a very big fan of the NFL teams and one professional orange and blue team that I think has had more quarterbacks than even the Cleveland Browns. I think it comes down to that. If you don't have a secure quarterback that's solid behind center, I think that you can have mediocre receivers. I think you can have mediocre running backs. As long as you have a good line and you have a great quarterback or a decent quarterback, and that doesn't turn the ball over, I think you are legitimately in that game and could win most of those games. But as long as Sanders plays similar to how he played against Steel Canyon, and don't get me wrong, because that's a very good defense over there.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was a great game. Another great one between those two, just like you said it would be.
And I said it was probably going to be 1 to 3 point. I mean, that's just how they play.
21-20. I mean, you know.
Well, and the thing was too, I want to say it wasn't last year, but it was the year before that Kellen decided to go for it. Also on that one, and no offense, Kellen, we ended up on the short end of the stick on that one, also. But you know, I think that's one of the everybody's talking about these 4th downs lately, but I think that's the toughest decision to make at the end of the game, whether or not to go into overtime or just, hey, we got some momentum, let's just punch it in and be done with it.
Yeah. Well, I just see, you know, for the Eagle, you always lament the transfers. I mean, you got 2 Helix guys, really, Parlin Sanders, the Colonel, and Joaquin Thomas Jr. For the Eagles, looking to, you know, probably play a big role in that game. Yeah, they will need more production out of the quarterback position. The Helix doesn't get tremendous production from Jesse, but you've mentioned his steady improvement throughout the season, and that he does protect the ball very, very well. And of course, he just does a masterful job of distributing the ball using his fakes, even though it's going to Washington every time.
Well, Well, let's not forget about Isaiah Hassan too. That's one of the key components too of that Eagles as of late. In particular, he's definitely a key component. A lot of Helix guys over there, or what were Helix?
Yeah, you can close the gap, Dave. I'm taking the Highlanders, and you know that. And I think that they can win it by a couple of touchdowns.
Well, I already know I owe you the pie anyway, so
a couple of them, I think. But
well, you can get 2 Little Caesars in. I think I can cover that. At any rate, I still think that still think that Granite has a lot of gas in the tank. Not just on the offensive side we're always talking about, but I think that they still got plenty in the tank on the offense or the defensive side. And I think that they're going to be able to, if they can slow down Major Gibbons, I think they can do the same with Washington. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the best runners in the county, but I think he's going to have a lot less. He's not going to have 200 or 250 yards against that defense. I am going to, unfortunately, which I don't typically do, but I'm going to say Helix, but I'm going to say Helix only by 10.
Okay. Oh, you are going Helix then. Okay. Well, I thought you'd go with the Eagles. Here's the thing for the Eagles, right? I'm not saying that this season, because like I said, they're going, they're in Division I. They'll be in the playoffs. They're going to get a game no matter what happens here. But for the Eagles, quite honestly, a victory here saves the season to a certain extent. You can
500.
Say, we knocked off Helix and prevented them from being the, solo champions. I would guess the way they look at it, because Helix would have 1 loss, and then the winner of the next game will have 2 victories. And I'm talking about the Grossmont Foothillers and the Steel Canyon Cougars. Dave, a most interesting series. They played a lot of close games. They've also played a lot of blowouts. They've played in the playoffs before. They've played wild ones. This one kind of shapes up to be a close game. The Cougars are definitely moving into the status of being favored in this game, even though Grossmont in the computers does have a slight edge on Steel Canyon. I think most people see Grossmont, if you had a scale, right, maybe Grossmont's going down a little bit while Steele's still going up.
Well, we got to look again. We got to look at that strength of schedule, and which I think shouldn't be much far off because Grossmont's played a phenomenal amount of. They haven't played the
All the
past.
hills. Look at these records, Dave. Right? I mean, we shouldn't have, people. Helix 3 losses, Granite 5 losses, Grossmont 6 losses, Steel Canyon 7 losses. If these coaches would have known that I don't know, that they were going back to this formula, maybe they can't avoid playing these good teams because of the 4-team format. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just think that they both just the lineups that they had to play and the traveling they had to do, something that we mentioned at the beginning of the season, that Grossmont had not been traveling outside of San Diego County for I don't know how double-digit years, and that's just something that they hadn't done. And Steel Canyon, but I don't think they'd gone out of town as often, typically either. Maybe down to the South Bay, to play Otay or Mater Dei or somebody like that. But I think that some of the traveling, I want to say, possibly could have had a factor on some of those losses. And they were very talented teams that they had to play against on the road, out of town. And, I mean, I don't know, Grossmont, I've seen them play 2 great games, maybe 2.5 great games. And then I've seen some other games that are just, where did they go? Where did the running backs go again? Last week, they were, okay, Helix score. Okay, we're going to score. Boom. They're scoring. Roddick's catching balls again. Burns is catching balls again. I mean, he's distributed to his receivers again that he had done at the beginning of the season. But overall, what do you hear after that? You hear Roddick, you hear Burns, then you hear Washington, 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 Washington. Oh, there's another touchdown for Washington. Not that Jesse wasn't throwing a couple of passes here and there, but who was scoring the touchdowns? Who was tearing up the field? It was Washington.
Well, here in this one, Dave, I think Steel Canyon, you look at the running game, I like Steel Canyon. Quarterback, maybe I favor Grossmont, right, with Giles, because Steel Canyon, they still had a couple of even though it seems like Manzo always brings the spark they need when he comes into the game and gets them the key yardage or touchdown that they need. But defensively, I think, is where you got to kind of look to this game, right? I mean, Steel Canyon's got strong defenders. Adrian Chargoloff is one of the best guys out there as far as the secondary and getting turnovers, but we know Grossmont's had a pretty solid defense this year with Odom and Sanders. So this one is tougher to call. I mean, this is another situation where kind of Grossmont can make their season. I think Steel Canyon's favored. I mean, the computers are saying Steel Canyon is favored by about a touchdown. And they also, though, the computers are kind of saying there's going to be 47 points scored. I don't know if there's going to be that many points scored. It might only be a couple of touchdowns for each team.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that the total would be going. I don't think the total would go over 34, quite honestly.
And we know that it's funny because I've expected defensive games between these teams, and they've ended up having like 40-38 or 40-34. Though some of those scores will strike a chord, and some, it was something like that. And for a couple of meetings in a row, going back and forth, and they've had some playoff games. I've got the Cougars winning this one, Dave, and probably got it by. I think they can get there by a touchdown. Still, I'll just go with the numbers, I think.
Well, I've gone with Grossmont a couple of times, and they've let me down a couple of times, and then they surprised me a couple of times. So in this one, seeing how well if they play as well as they played, and they have a game like they did against Granite Hills. Don't get me wrong. They knew, I mean, even the coaches said that themselves. They knew a lot of what Granite Hills was going to do because Coach Holmes was there so they're doing some of similar things. Okay, we're going to exploit these things. If it doesn't work, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. But they pretty much exploited everything, and they did everything as predicted. So, do they have the same knowledge with Steel Canyon? No, but I mean, you got Major Gibbons, but I still think that if they can put that offense together like they did against Granite Hills, they realistically have more weapons offensively than the Cougars if they play up to par. But as far as defenses, I think they're pretty equal. I think they're going to be feeling both quarterbacks are going to be feeling some serious pressure. But if it does end up being an aerial assault, I would definitely go with the Hillers because even under pressure, Giles, and even in the loss of Giles, has been pretty spectacular. Whether he's running with the ball, stepping up and throwing down the field, I think with a little more help up front and some of the receivers being where they're supposed to be most of the time, I think that they would be scoring a lot more. So I'm going to go with the unexpected, and I'm going to take the Hillers by 3.
Okay, so you think that you know the defenses are good. It's fair to say, Dave, if the Cougars win, it's going to be like 17-14, 21-17, something like that. But if the Foothillers win, it may be 28-27 or 31-28 or something like that.
Yeah, if that, or maybe even a 27-24. I just don't think it's going.
If the Hillers win, I think it has to be higher scoring. That's the way I feel anyway. I'm just wondering if you agreed with that.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's lower scoring all the way?
I just don't think it's going to be that 47 that they're saying.
No. Oh, 47 total, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying lower score favors Cougars, higher score gives the Hillers a chance. They've got to get the offense going. Look, I'm not worried if Grossmont can't run, they know what to do. It's just all right, let's move on. That's it for the Hills League. Just make note of it though. I mean, these two teams are playing for a possible share. That when they take the field on Friday night, they don't know that Helix is going to go out and beat Granite Hills. So they got to take care of business on the field in this game if they have any hopes of sharing the Grossmont Hills League title if Helix were to get upset by Granite Hills. So they won't know. I mean, maybe they can have someone tell them, or nobody scoreboard watches like that. It's something you find out even at the end of the game. Okay, Dave, you can scoreboard watch on this one because the scoreboard may be on tilt by the time this one's over. I'm not ever saying that the coaching matchup takes precedence over the game, but these two coaches, Dan Mitchell, Joel Allen, the former Patriots, both of them, and they love facing each other. There's going to be trick plays. I guarantee you there's trick plays galore in this game. There might be one by each team in every quarter. And Christian going on the road against Point Loma. The Patriots will likely host a home game in the playoffs, but they can assure that for the victory over the Pointers.
Well, and let's give a lot of credit to Jake Davila for playing with a cast the whole game, playing with a cast. It's not on his throwing arm, but still being able to grip that ball and throwing some of the throws that he made to his receivers. I mean, you gotta give the kid. I mean, they thought they had him down and out when he made a trip earlier, a couple weeks earlier to the ER, and then next thing you know, which I found out later. I can't remember if it was the wrist or the actual arm. Anyhow, I know that it happened in a game prior to.
It looked like he was protecting his left forearm, so I don't know.
Yeah, but the way, I sent you that because Robert Davila sent me the initial one before the game where he was getting warmed up, and just a little tongue in cheek, he said, "Check this out." Look, and then it showed Jake just warming up and as if it was nothing. So, and you saw the results. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, their opponent was an opponent that El Capitan had also beaten quite handily, but still, let's give Jake credit, and they are, by the way, not just the players, but even Coach Mitchell. They're referring to him as Jake the Snake. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot of bootlegs now if they're referring to the Jake the Snake that I'm familiar with when it comes to Jake Plummer, because he was the bootleg master under Mike Shanahan anyhow. But that's neither here nor there. Couple of things that Coach Mitchell, I asked him to give me a just a little mini story too, because he and Joel are
yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a sidebar to a certain extent. You don't want to take away from these players, but Coach Mitchell said it a couple weeks ago. He was looking for. He said it before the season. He was looking forward to this game.
Well, yeah, and that's why I say, come on, give me a story, Coach. Give me just a little tiny story. And I mean, he opens up to talk about the players first, because he's always about the players first. He's just a humble guy. And the way he put it, we're just going to give them everything we've got. And he says, as you've said a couple of times already, to him, Coach Joel Allen is the best coach, leader, and most importantly, the best friend that he's ever had. This is a must-win for Point Loma, and I know that they're going to be as well prepared as any team. We are focused on just getting better and better each week, and hope to give them our best as well. We are lucky to have Joey Merritt and J.C. Gustin on our side leading the Patriots, though. That was he wanted to make a statement as far as, and really they are not. I mean, we've talked about Joey Merritt and how many things he brings to the table. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of a couple of years ago of Fishburne and how many positions he played and how great he was in pretty much every position, playing safety, punting, and just a hands down phenomenal quarterback in high school on that state championship team. JC, such a great guy off of the field too, though. So and you saw for homecoming, I saw him as I believe he was the king in smear.
Yeah. Touchdown in the first half, homecoming king.
Boy, he's sweating all over the place. He's got the black everywhere. I mean, it's just a perfect for a guy like that. And as I had said before, I mean, I almost just want to call him the Flash, because that guy is just hands down one fast guy. You give him the ball, he's going to give you the yards after the catch, more so than most receivers in the county. But I wanted to go on. He had mentioned that, and he went on. This is where I asked him about the story, and he said bragging rights for sure between Joel and Coach Mitchell. And this is where he refers to Jake the Snake is good to go, because I asked him how the cast has been working out, and obviously we saw it. And I asked him again about the story, and he said he's got so many great memories with Joel. And as you mentioned before, he's a Christian High alum, and he said that they had some incredible years together coaching at Bishop's. And weirdly, one of our greatest memories is 2016 finals versus Christian. It's both our hopes to build our programs back to that caliber of team, and get them back up. He was what he was really getting to is that I don't know if you remember that 2016 the final between the two at the time. Do you remember that game, or was that?
No.
So anyhow, I think on this one, like you said, that really the pressure is on the Pointers. The Pointers have got to win this game.
Yeah, they could. Mitchell could do his buddy a favor by losing this game, but unfortunately, Christian. Right, but Christian needs the game to make sure they get that home game. They're right on. They're like in 7th place, so the 5, 6, 7, 8 gets home games in the first round. So Christian's kind of hanging on right now. The Patriots will fall short, Dave, of their goal of the league title because their game with the Mira Mesa Marauders, who won the league championship proudly. They had their game canceled because of Christian's health protocols. Christian only has 1 loss. They're 1-1 in the Eastern League. It's a 5-team league that's supposed to play 4 games. We won't know really if Christian could have beaten Mira Mesa. They would have been underdogs in that game. Mira Mesa appears to be playing very, very well and would have been expected to beat that game against beat Christian. The game was, I believe, at Mira Mesa, but we'll never know, unfortunately.
Well, I wanted to add to it too. I had some other notes here that Coach had said that they're both playing in a higher division now, and that it's wacky. They both got to experience what it takes to play at championship level in D2, especially because of them both being smaller programs. So he's looking at Friday as he talked about it earlier on. I think even when we did the preview at the beginning of the season, I think he referenced this game as being definitely something that he would circle on the calendar. But as he says, he's very humble, and it's about the kids. And I think it's a very winnable game for Christian. I think that they've had their share of injuries too, but I'll tell you what, the most resilient kid so far, and it's only his first full year, is Jake Davila. I mean, he's been, like I said, from concussion to now he's got a cast on his non-throwing arm, and I don't have his stats right in front of me, but you saw them too. I mean, the amount of rushing he was able to do, and still being able to throw it on the money, and that's according to his receivers too, JC being one of them, as a matter of fact, and Hunter Province.
Yeah, Hunter caught a touchdown too, I believe, right? So
yep, Hunter caught, and he was hitting his favorite receivers, and then after they scored those 3 touchdowns, I believe, then put the 2s and 3s in there, and they were still having a field day. So Christian's got that depth going for them too. So I think the Pointers are going to have their hands full with the Christian Patriots.
Well, and the computers would say that Christian is the slight favorite here, and I'm willing to go. I don't know. I don't know. I think, like I said, there's gonna be some trick plays, some goofy stuff going on. Point Loma might be able to get out of there, get that victory that they need, Dave. But I know you're taking the Patriots.
Gosh darn it! I wish I could put us both. I wish we could do something Star Trek like and transport us over to the Christian game for just a moment, game, and then transport us back to the game of the year.
You think it's gonna be fun? You think this is gonna be a fun game?
I think that would probably be. Look, folks, any other game you want to watch in the county besides the big one, obviously with West Hills and El Cap and with everything on the line, I'll tell you what, the second best game in the county, hands down, is definitely going to be that Christian and Point Loma game. Hands down.
There's some decent games, and there's some games that aren't being played, apparently. Let's move on to more. Well, I got to pick it. I'll go with I'm going with Christian, but I just have a feeling you're going with Christian.
I'm going with Christian. I'm going with Christian by 14.
Okay, I'm going with Christian by 1 because I kind of have a feeling you better win, Danny, because I know that your friend's going to have some something up his sleeve. You know it too. Okay, Dave, let's move on to one non-league game here. It's
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing that
Yeah,
that we haven't touched on since
with Christian.
with all the things that are tied together. We were talking about Bishops. We're talking about Joel. We're talking about Danny Mitchell, and then we were talking about Helix before that. And then lo and behold, we've never mentioned about how Tyler Buckner's doing over there with the Irish.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and I know everyone,
Come on.
Well, if you don't suit up for a team, did you really play for a team? You might have attended the school, but it was great. I mean, it was great. It was great to see the matchup. Everybody wanted to see the matchup with Buckner, with Notre Dame, and from Virginia Tech, the kid from La Jolla Country Day, Burmeister. So everybody got a big piece of that.
That's basically what I was getting at. I wasn't getting anything else, but we kind of, I had it in my head with Helix, and I figured he might say something like that. And then I as often as I talk to Coach Mitchell, he makes many references to Tyler being the best quarterback that he ever coached. So
yeah,
kind of tied into what
one
we're
thing
saying.
I've gotten away. Your dad used to write a great column, and Montel Allen does a great job of highlighting those players from around the country. And he used to write a column each week on how we've had some great stars this year doing some great things this season. Elelion Noah just had a great rushing game recently. Jihad Woods of Washington State, a couple Highlanders you mentioned, doing some things. So, Dave, Mount Miguel and Del Norte. Mount Miguel's hanging on for a playoff spot should they qualify, and I think they are worthy considering their record and the quality of play that they put forth each and every week. They're a great rushing team. They quite frankly, they look like a playoff caliber team to me, Dave. There'll be considerable underdogs here, though, against Del Norte, but still, even with a loss, Mount Miguel, they will only have 8 games. The rules say you got to have 9. This is a special scenario this season, apparently. I hope I have that right. I don't even know if I'm right anymore because
it is supposed to be 9, but as I had told you, and I probably sound like a broken record myself, but I think a lot of people don't understand that one of them was the COVID protocol. So I would say that one would fall in his. They did play 9. They had 9 games in.
Well, I would just be, yeah. No, it's important. This is important.
I don't know how they figured that other one into it wasn't a COVID situation. They just didn't have another staff, and because of the bye that they had to.
Yeah, it wasn't a regularly scheduled game. They had actually picked up a game.
So what do you do there?
I don't think it was ever a game. I mean, I don't think there was ever a game.
But do you count that against the games? Is it a forfeit?
I still think you have 8 games. It's kind of like there's a team this week, for example. I don't know how this would work. There's a team this week in the county that chose not to play their final game against another team, and that team is also going to end up with only 8 games played. Now, in that situation, should that team be allowed to compete in the postseason? This game was not a result of COVID health protocols. This team elected not to play the game out of protest, out of a social protest. So to me, that looks like possibly that team might not be eligible for the postseason. I beg your pardon?
But my question is, and I know that it's not community college, but would that go down as a forfeit?
Well, the CIF on this particular game, the CIF has not yet ruled on it. I would think it would have to be a forfeit technically by rule. And maybe that would give you a 9th result. Yes, maybe that would give you a 9th. So maybe that would be the right. Maybe that would be the right thing to do. Other possibility, it would be called a no contest, which would leave you with 8 games. And if you were to forfeit, you would get a loss. The team probably would have lost anyways. They were considerable underdogs, maybe by as many as 5 or 6 touchdowns. So maybe I'm not saying that team didn't want to play their game. They have a very, very valid case. We're here to talk about Mount Miguel and Del Norte. And Mount Miguel.
I think touching that one could set the freaking. We don't want to touch that one. But
I'm just describing scenarios from other teams. There are a few other teams, not just the one that there are a few other teams with 8 games, and they do mostly fall under the category of the health protocols.
Okay, I just wanted to figure out. My only real question on that was whether or not it would. So they're still deciding whether it's a loss or a forfeit, or they don't really know. There's no final.
The right thing to do, would be to forfeit, so it goes on your record as a loss, right? But some teams are very, very prideful and don't want to forfeit a game that they've declared that they are not going to play for whatever reason, right? A protest, that's valid. It's a very valid reason. Don't want to play this game by protest, but to do it the last minute, anyway. Dave, Mount Miguel and Del Norte. Del Norte is expected to win this game. The computers have Del Norte favored pretty aggressively, maybe by as many as 4 touchdowns here. I can't see that being the case. Mount Miguel really is a machine right now when it comes to running the football. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go up there and pull off this upset, but I will tell you, remember Mount Miguel beat Del Norte at Del Norte 26-19. They had Jaheim Allen Pompey, who had one of the best individual performances in recent years in that game. And Del Norte won 42-20 in 2018. So they played a couple of times in the last few years.
But what about Eric White, the 3 Musketeers? What about Eric White and Ruben Martinez and Jeremiah Castillo? I mean, the 3 Musketeers could do some serious damage.
And don't forget Davian McGowan. He rushed for almost 100 yards this week, and he's one of the most overlooked backs, in my opinion, in the East County.
Well, I think he might have been overshadowed too, because Eric White, we know the performance that he had 2 weeks ago.
And Hernandez scores 20 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, that guy's always scoring, and I think that Jeremiah being the versatile athlete, being able to throw the ball and also catch the ball, and not to mention he's a pretty speedy character as well on the field. A lot. I wish we would get a little more statistical information from Mount Miguel. If anybody out there, we would love to have it.
I didn't know much. We covered it a little bit this past week. Go ahead. I'll give you some highlights.
I try. Well, I'm just reaching out. Maybe somebody can get us that, because I can get a lot of the information. Jeremiah Castillo is a great kid, and he can usually hook me up with Eric, or he can hook me up with a lot of the other players on there, and make sure that they get their due. But the clock's ticking always. So on a Friday night, if we don't reach you right away, which the players out there know too, I'll get a text Saturday morning, Saturday night, whatever. But at least it's out there, and we give them their voice that they want heard on how they played. But everybody's pointing at Del Norte, but I don't know, the way Mount Miguel's played some of the better talent out there. And for example, the biggest example is how close they played not Mount Miguel, El Capitan. Was it 35-28?
And they did a great job last week in their victory over Valhalla.
And if you look at that El Capitan team and being able to match up that closely with that team, that definitely tells me that give Mount Miguel the edge, because I know, looking at everything, that I think El Capitan would take down Del Norte by a couple of touchdowns themselves. That being said, I think Mount McGill, even on the road, I would take them by a pair.
Well, like I said, Mount McGill, they could sure make things easier on themselves if they win. Like I said,
2 touchdowns.
they're going to need a few points in their call. 5-3 is going to look better than 4-4 if the committee's kind of weighing their placement because they don't have enough games. But like you said, uh, maybe they will get in. I'll give you one thing, Dave. The defensive player of the week was Mount McGill sophomore defensive back Hector Armenta. He burst onto the headlines. He burst onto the scene really with 3 interceptions in the first half. 2 of them came in the first quarter, including a 73-yard interception return. You mentioned Castillo and McGowan. They combined for 245 yards rushing. McGowan also had an interception. Mount McGill led this one 13-0 in the first quarter and led 20-6 entering the fourth quarter. So I've got Del Norte still winning this one, but certainly it will not be by the 4 touchdowns that the computers suggest. Maybe Del Norte wins by a touchdown.
No, I'm going to go completely opposite. I'm going to say Mount McGill shocks them 2 touchdowns.
Good.
Mount McGill wins. And I was going to ask you that. How long has it been now? Let's not forget that it hasn't been that long that Mount McGill wasn't a Hills team not too long ago.
Well, it has been it's been. I'm not. I don't know if they were Hill. They were in the South, but I don't know if they.
Maybe that's what it was.
Okay.
I was trying to think of. Maybe they were just up a division when I was trying to think of the.
Well, the South. I think the South, when the South contained this, when it was more demographically aligned. Remember when they went to the demographics? The South teams, generally were better than the teams that were called the North and were actually North. So and that's just the way it was worked out back in that time, kind of demographically and strength-wise, those teams for so many years as well. So anyways, it's going to be for Mount McGill. They're in 10th place right now. It's looking pretty good still, but like I said, just win so they don't have to worry about it.
So if they knock down Del Norte, they can go up to maybe 3 points.
Oh yeah, no, they could maybe. I don't know if they could sneak into a home game, but like I said, technically I think they will need to be placed into the playoffs. I don't know how. They might just say, place them where they're at. 8 games is good enough. Dave, Mountain Empire, they're going to take on first place Palo Verde Valley. Palo Verde Valley is going to win the Desert League, it looks like. But Mountain Empire could spoil things with a victory at home. And Mountain Empire, Dave, wow. Last week, the same thing happened. They get so close. They play so well, and they lose just in the nick of time, according, for the opposition's sake. Mountain Empire, they got down close. They ended up turning the ball over, and that's all Palo Verde Valley needed. Holtville needed to win the game. The only 1 touchdown in the game. It was scored by Holtville, Dave. It was a great display of defense. Go ahead.
7-3.
7-3.
That tells me, boy, and Coach Ricky Prince had commented on that. The defense just played their tail. Obviously, they played their tails off. Coach Bernard Van also wanted to add that the quarterback Mannix had some pretty good throws, and he's really improving week by week as he's had to fill the spot for Corey Van, and heading into the playoffs too. I guess he's getting better with the play action and some boots too. So he said on his rollouts he's improving each game too. So maybe he's getting more comfortable with his receivers. And that's going to make a big difference because, holy cow, Larry Clark, his shoulders have got to be so chapped from carrying the defense and carrying the offense.
Mountain Empire is incredible on their drives. I mean, they chew up so much of the clock right now. Poor Mannix, he's in there doing the best he can, and does a great job, because when you're managing the game like he is, and Mountain Empire goes on these drives, Dave, 6-7 minutes, taking up time off the clock. Unfortunately, they had two of those long drives resulted in turnovers, and then the one mistake that Mannix, it wasn't a mistake. He got hit hard. The ball fluttered into the air. The guy caught it at the 10-yard line. A couple plays later, Holtville was in the end zone. But, Mountain Empire, they are in every single game. I imagine, even though they are considerable underdogs here, the computer lists them really as 3 touchdown underdogs. There's no way. I mean, Mountain Empire is going to stay with it. They're going to be within a touchdown, even though Palo Verde Valley is the first place team.
As Coach Van put it, and this is exactly how I look at it. I mean, they win that game against Holtville last week and so close to doing it. And then I think they win last week's game. They got a home game regardless if they win this game or not. But then if they win this game this week and they won that one last week, hey, we're looking at I honestly think, and Coach Van said it before I did, they could have easily been 8-2 or 9-1. That's how close they were in the games that they lost. It was just ridiculous. All those blowouts, and then the close ones that they did play, goodness, they just barely lost those games.
Yeah, right. And Corey's been out all this time, and he was,
and can you,
great as these other players are, he was so critical to their because they have an offense. It's an incredible offense that churns out yardage, doesn't give up the ball. But if they just had a little bit of passing from Corey Van, it would have made all the difference in the world.
Well, let's who knows, because he's getting more comfortable, as Coach Van and Coach Prince have mentioned. If Mannix gets a little more comfortable, you never know. He could come up big in the playoffs, but definitely.
Well, Corey's supposed to come back. Is it this week, Dave? Could it be next week? You mentioned the playoffs. The Mountain Empire, they're probably heading out on the road. They could be playing a team like Army, Navy, or Crawford, or maybe even Calexico. And I think they could beat any of those teams.
Maybe the playoffs, but as far as I know so far, it's Mannix behind center for sure for this game here. But I think that's why he was mentioning how he's coming along and really, I mean, yeah, he like you said, he gave that one away, but you got to have an offensive line watching your back too, and we don't know if he was standing back there too long. But the point is, they played a heck of a game. You lose a game 7-3, you're leading 3-0 most of the game. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of lack of offense, but we don't. They're playing against a good defense. Hey, that losing a game like that, I know it's tough. If you would talk to Ron Berner on those kind of games, I've talked to him on those. And when you lose games like that, he would always say that it builds character. It makes you better for that next game that you have coming up. So maybe in this case, that's exactly what the doctor ordered. I think that this Mountain Empire, but 3 touchdowns for the other, I think they're way underrated.
Well, the best thing you can get is compliments from your opposition, and Holtville's coach said that Mountain Empire is a really good team that matched up well with them, and they've got some tough kids, and they felt lucky to come out of there with the victory, Dave. He said that Mountain Empire did exactly what they wanted to do in the first half. Really, they only had the ball twice. I'm talking about Holtville in the entire first half. The 2 drives that Mountain Empire ran the ball all the way down each time. They had a fumble and an interception that kind of cost them, and I want to mention Daniel Obed. He was the one. He got the 3 points. He kicked a 30-yard field goal. So hats off to him. He that lead almost stood up. And
does this
I got Palo Verde Valley though, Dave. Yeah, I'm taking them too though.
Before I make my pick, does this team kind of remind you of somebody? I think it reminds me of a Spring Valley team and it's not Mount McGill. the way that they are chewing up clock and playing defense. They definitely look like a maroon and gold team. Just different tops with the red tops, but I'm definitely going to go with the Red Hawks. I'm going to say that the naysayers and the computers and coaches that think that they're not going to take this game, I think they need to reevaluate all the games that they've played and how closely they have been played and their injuries. And I think they're getting better as they lose these close games each time. So I'm going with the Red Hawks by 3.
Yeah, and I just want to correct something, and I know you're picking them no matter what, but my graphic is wrong there. I believe this game is being played at Southwest High in El Centro, so kind of a neutral game. But I know you're still going with Mountain Empire. I think Mountain Empire might be the designated home team. I'm not sure, but I think the game is being played at El Centro Southwest. So go Red Hawks.
Well,
and
I'll definitely get. I'll make sure that I get you that information. I'll get a hold of Coach Van. Got to talk to him. So some real exciting news, real quick before you get to that one. There is a good possibility that for the first time, and I don't know if it's ever, but we could be getting the Mountain Empire boys basketball and girls basketball team joining, being a part of East County sports coverage this year.
Well, sounds great. We are the home of the Red Hawks. Dave, one more game. Foothills Christian is going to take on Maranatha Christian. This is not a league game, even though these two teams are in the same league. They did play earlier this season in what was the league game. Unlike Mountain Empire and Holtville, that the league game was last week's the league? I don't even remember. They played twice as well, but here Foothills Christian won the first meeting 20-19 at Sayout Field. That was the league game. This game will be at 4S Ranch. Foothills is trying to hold on to a playoff berth, and they must win this game in order to do so. A loss will likely elevate Maranatha Christian into the postseason. Foothills Christian could still hang on. Maranatha Christian needs this to go to the playoffs. Foothills Christian can maybe lose and still make it, but a win, it's almost a playoff game is what I'm trying to say. Foothills Christian leads the all-time series 3-1, and I've got I just have a feeling Maranatha Christian might win this one probably by the same score, a very low-scoring game. All right, Dave, I don't know if you have anything on that one or if you want to talk about anything else that's going on. Just the fact that El Capitan and West Hills, what a night it's going to be. We're going to be out there. We're going to try to broadcast live, whether it's before the game, during the game. We're going to be there, and it's going to be an awesome night.
I tell you, to be out there live at a game like that, where it was somewhat simple. I got a preview of how it's going to be doubly as important and as amazing as last week was, because I'll tell you what, the parking lots were overfilled. The fans on
it was homecoming though, right? Was it homecoming last week? Okay, but
the fans were going absolutely nuts. I mean, the Sultans had the full seats over there too on the visit. Just absolute pandemonium. I mean, boy, talking stuff back and forth. The fans talking back. I mean, everything that you wanted in a football game, you had it. Even on the sidelines, go to the other sideline. You had to go on both just so you could get something over here, something over there. I almost felt like the Red Jacket was following me, as a matter of fact. But that's okay. I'm good with that. We had Ken Todd out there. We had Tammy out there. I think we had the whole team out there covering that rivalry Mayor's Cup game. And I'll tell you, just the end was worth all of it. And the handing off, I don't know if you got to see too, and a lot of our listening audience, if you got to see the presentation of the cup by a former West Hills Wolfpack player as well. So I thought that was
okay, yeah.
it was kind of the caveat.
It's just interesting that I think they've tried to officially name the trophy again, and that used to be. There's been so many different names, and maybe it's now called the City Cup, the Santee City Cup. I'm not sure.
Well,
The Santee City Cup. Okay, I just thought Santee Mayor's Cup, Santee Mayor's Trophy. It used to be named after the mayor, but that was the original mayor not the original mayor, but when the cup was, they named it after the mayor. But there have been several mayors, or a couple mayors since then, a few mayors. Just to say,
it's kind of funny too, because we've discussed the Burner Cup trophy several times.
Well,
and
the Santee's a cup. I mean, it's like
no.
You can pour stuff in it or drink out of it if you wanted to.
I can't argue with you on it because Dylan Snyder, as I was interviewing Braden Oberg, if any of you folks saw the footage of that game and the interview with Braden I was having, and Mr. Snyder was behind with the cup and cut nothing in there, obviously, but he had the cup like he was going to pour it on Braden. And thank you, Braden Oberg, if you are watching, for keeping that straight face. I don't know how you were able to do that with everything that was going on, but hey, man, good stuff. And I guess Ramon is correct, but the quotes that I did get from Coach Burner too, he gets stuck. I think he gets talked into it. I said, so also the Burner Cup, and then he says Burner Cup because I already put it in his head that it's a cup. So you're right.
You're right. No, they do. They refer. If Ron Burner wants to call this the Burner Cup, then I will as well. But I'm telling you, that's not a cup. Just one more shout out late, because you're right. And Mr. Green comes in and says, hey, give Nathaniel Green his due. He's playing very well. He didn't get mentioned. And I'll just say, since we haven't mentioned his name in several weeks, maybe I want to see this game, Dave, come down. I don't know. I don't care which team's got the ball. I want the championship on the line on the last play of the game, whether it's a 2-point conversion or needing a touchdown or a field goal. Let's just have it end with a tremendous celebration and heartache. You can't have a victory without a heartache. And that's some of the great lessons and learned in life, is to accept defeat. And one of these teams will do it. So I've got Nathaniel Green game-winning touchdown. How's that? Mr. Green?
And you know what we haven't mentioned too, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm picking them, but look for Mr. Benavente to make. He has been making some phenomenal plays on that field. You see the number 20 coming towards you. I'll tell you what, you better get rid of the ball and you better throw it away from him, because I'll tell you what, he's either going to make you pay by catching the ball or he's going to put a nice hit on you. So just saying, that kid is, I forgot about that, and I apologize. Benavente's been just
Cohen Benavente, yep.
He has been lights out. He's fun to watch. Is everything that he does, and again, Dylan Snyder, where Max Conaway's been, battling the injury. Boy, has Snyder just stepped up, or what?
I like that feature. They did a feature on Fox 5 too of Dylan. That was really cool.
The way he runs to the outside and just. You wouldn't think he's as fast as he is, but some of those cuts he makes, the patience he has behind those blocks, just definitely a phenomenal runner.
Yeah, I'll get out of here. And my scoop will be Alex Faea will be. He has said that he will try to be playing in that game. I don't know if he can be used on offense in that game, but El Cap will need that extra defense, and I have possibly Alex returning this week for the game. I have it on a good word that could be the case. All right, for Dave Dickens, I'm Ramon Scott. We're going to see you out there at West Hills High. There's the man. There's my great longtime best friend For Bill Dickens, for Dave Dickens, I'm Ramon Scott, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you out there at West Hills High Friday night for the championship game.